Boy, another day and another rumor about Oregon State and Washington State to the Big 12. We are talking about Oregon State and Washington State potentially to the Big 12 once again here today. But the good news is we have some great reporting from Jon Wilner of the Pac-12 hotline, now the Wilner hotline, who's been doing some really good stuff involving the Big 12. I would highly recommend that you go follow him and follow his work. Working on getting him on the channel as well. So hopefully we'll have that pretty soon. But we're going to talk about his latest mailbag, which addressed these rumors that have popped up on Twitter and elsewhere, I suppose, about Oregon State and Washington State to the Big 12. There is a lot to get caught up on, and I appreciate you guys for bearing with me. Yesterday, I was out of town for a funeral, so was spending the weekend with some family, so I appreciate you guys giving me a little bit of leeway there. And the schedule is going to be weird this week. I've given you guys a heads up if you follow the community tab. So I guess a good reminder to go do that. But if you're following the community tab, I told you this week we're going Monday night, Thursday night, because my schedule is like jam packed with a couple of events I have to go to on Wednesday. So that wasn't going to work out anyway. So honestly, like offsetting the schedule a little bit here kind of worked out anyway. But we've got the Oregon State and Washington State rumor all covered here with some great Jon Wilner reporting. We've got the coaches poll, which came out. And to be honest, I think guys paid a decent amount of respect to the Big 12, man. We also have a wild Colorado story. Have you guys been paying attention to the Athlon story about Colorado, which I do feel like is the second time we've gotten a wild Athlon story about Colorado, right? I was trying to dig up the first one. Somebody remind me what that first one was, but it does feel to me almost like does somebody at Athlon have like an axe to grind with Dion? I'm taking this one with a grain of salt. You know, I hesitate talking about it too much, but we can read it. We can go through it. I am not a Coach Prime hater, and this feels a little bit on the edge of like somebody being a Coach Prime hater and really trying to push a narrative there. Plus, I mean, the thing that was driving the discussion on Twitter today, if you guys were on Twitter, man, everybody was talking about this Big 12 pregame experiences list, basically ranking the Big 12 stadiums by which has the best pregame experience. And there were different categories. And look, I'll admit it was some of those, I don't know. Some of those rankings were crazy, and not even necessarily like the 1 through 16 overall, but some of the different category rankings, I think, were the particular parts that were crazy. So that got everybody on Twitter riled up. I'd imagine it'll do it here. And if you are a recipient of Open for Business, if you are a subscriber to Open for Business, the Big 12 newsletter, now with 1,600 plus Big 12 fans reading it, you already know all about this because the last send went out at about 5:15 today. So you already got to read up all about it. If you want to be a part of it, click the link in the description of the video or go to ofbnews.com. ofbnews.com stands obviously for Open for Business. So please go get subscribed. That is a great way to support the channel and just support me if you love what I do as a creator, ofbnews.com. Lots of ways to support the channel. You guys know that. Liking the video is great. Another free way to do it. I would very much appreciate it if you do that. Keep the comments coming. But if you do want to make sure that you make it on the show tonight, one way you can do that is to click the $ below the chat box. And that is how you can get on the show for sure tonight. Like my friend Rick Jr., I will get to that super chat in just a moment. But if you click the $ below the chat box, it will create a super chat, which ensures that you make it on the show here tonight and is a great way to support the channel. And I couldn't do it without all the support you guys give me. I greatly appreciate it. Also on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. Somebody did request that I start saying that slower. My apologies. I probably do roll through it and I tend to talk fast. So John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to contribute to the channel that way. And if you do that and leave a question or comment, you're not watching live, I assume. If you do that, you can still be a part of the show because I will read your question or comment to kick off the next show. And we've got Mark, who was first in here. Mark also left me a nice note on Venmo, and I greatly appreciate your support, Mark. So thank you for this. We're going to start in the ACC realm, and the other super chat that we have so far is also ACC related. So this ties in very well. Great job. You guys are doing a good job programming the show tonight. Mark says, John, what's your opinion on the rumor that Jim Phillips unilaterally extended the grant of rights without consulting the ACC schools? If true, it would seem the legality of the extension is on shaky ground. I trust your opinion. Your insight is always thoughtful and measured. I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. That's the second time recently that I've been called very measured. I went on with TJ on the College Football Addiction channel the other day, and he was like, you're like the most measured guy out there. I was like, it's funny. I appreciate that. And I tend to think of myself as being fairly measured, but you'll find people who will tell you just the opposite. But no, I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you. I did have to look into that. And upon a quick Google search, it was obvious that was in a decent amount of places. This rumor basically being that the deadline for ESPN to decide on 2027 or 2036 being the end of the ACC contract was actually in 2021. And it sounds like, if I'm interpreting this correctly, and you guys let me know if I'm wrong, but sounds like the rumor there would be that Jim Phillips decided to just extend that without getting 2/3 approval from the conference. So he extended the date that they had to decide by to this 2025 date, February of 2025, that everybody has been pointing toward. So the deadline theoretically should have already come and passed, but it got pushed down or kicked down the road from that. That is what I was seeing anyway from the rumors that I was looking up. I mean, either way, if it's that or if it is more like directly you described, Mark, that it was a complete extension of the grant of rights until then, would that bring it onto more shaky legal ground? I mean, it certainly would seem to be that way. If, again, I'm operating under the pretense that it is true, it sounds like this is all just rumor stage here. So if that were true, yes, that probably does give the Florida State and Clemson legal teams more ammo. And if it is true, I mean, I can guarantee you that they're on top of it because those guys have been very aggressive, man. I mean, they're sharks out hunting right now for anything, which is why they got to the point of accusing John Swofford of nepotism. So like they're looking for anything and everything. I'm sure that they would be all over it. Now, this is where I also have to just say, I am no legal expert at all. I mean, I'm not anywhere near that. So I can't give you, people have to always say like, this is not legal advice. Do not take this as legal advice. I can't really give legal advice. But yeah, I mean, my interpretation would be the same as yours if it is true. I don't know, man. I mean, that seems to me like it's still very, very much in rumor phase. So I guess I take that with quite a bit of a grain of salt. Look, I think Jim Phillips has made a number of mistakes and just is not, maybe even more so than a number of mistakes. He made a big mistake, I think, with the college football playoff stuff, delaying expansion. But he's just a guy that I don't think is the most dynamic and ready to handle what the landscape calls for at this time, with the situation that his league is in. I just think of him as kind of, the old school college athletic administrator guy, which is not what you need right now. It's not what you need to be running your conference. So anyway, appreciate you, Mark. Thank you for alerting me to that because that was not on my radar, to be honest, before your contribution there. So I appreciate it. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to be like Mark and contribute that way. Rick Jr., the vibes. It's the vibes, baby. I don't know if Rick saw my tweet just before I came on here. Cal fans. It was a Cal fan coming after me on Twitter here. Let's see if we can share this. I just, of all people, you'd think Cal fans would have learned their lesson. Of all people in the ACC right now, Cal fans are the ones that should understand exactly what is going on right now. Here we go. Cal Bears great. So it was in reference to the Doug Rohan interview, which I would highly suggest that you guys watch if you haven't. Put it out there in 2 parts for you on the channel over this weekend while I was gone, and Doug was awesome as always. Really appreciate him. But he was saying, look, it's a misinformation campaign about Florida State and Clemson to the Big 12 specifically, not Florida State and Clemson leaving the ACC. All right, so that's an important distinction as it relates to this tweet. First of all, there's no chance Florida State and Clemson are going to the Big 12, and talks about the misinformation campaigns. And then I said, yeah, it's been a great month of PR for the Big 12. I was giving a little bit of credence to Doug's point that, hey, logically it would make sense that the SEC and Big Ten would be sitting here saying, well, we can't say that we want these schools at all because that would not be very good for us legally. And the Big 12 would be saying, well, we want to say we're talking and that it's a possibility they come to our league because it's great PR for us. And I said, yeah, it's definitely been a great month of PR for the Big 12. Now, there are also those that, I mean, Ross Dellinger said Ross Dellinger said he thinks that the Big 12 and the ACC, or the Big 12 and Florida State and Clemson have talked. Josh Pate says he thinks it's a legitimate landing spot for Florida State and Clemson is to go to the Big 12. So there are legitimate people that do still think that's a possibility. I would say that, for one, Cal Bear's great. But two, I just love how this whole thing just railroads on past Doug Rohan's entire point being that Florida State is getting the hell out of the ACC and Clemson is getting the hell out of the ACC. And if they're getting out, then North Carolina is getting out. And now you've got a real problem on your hands if you're the ACC. So, like, it's just such selective listening. I mean, Doug is as ardent as anybody out there that Florida State is leaving the ACC. So it's pretty unbelievable to me that a Cal fan would listen to Doug Rohan there and say, see, we gotcha. The ACC is just fine. Like, this is fine. It's all misinformation. Based on the Doug Rohan part, for one. Now, part two is you lived through this last year, Cal fan. Cal Bear is great. You lived through it last year. You saw the movie. You know how this goes. You guys were all telling, I mean, not just me. I didn't get it as much even as, you know, the Jason Shears of the world who were reporting on it. You guys told us all it was misinformation last year and no one was ever going to leave. Good old TJ Altimore got retweeted by Freezing Cold Takes the other day because of his, you know, emphatic denials that anybody would ever leave from the Pac-12 to go to the Big 12. You guys did this whole thing last year. And how did that work out? How did the Big 12 misinformation work out last year? What happened, Cal fan? You lost your conference, and now you'll be traveling more than NFL teams this year while playing your 12-game schedule than they do playing their 16-game schedule because you're stuck in the freaking ACC. I am sorry that this is not a great situation for you, but it is the reality. So I don't know. I feel for, this is where I start to get very frustrated. I do feel for the fans in these situations. I always try to remember that because I have been there multiple times before, man. I was there in 2010 as a Big 12 fan, staring the end of this in the face. But, like, to come so fervently at all of us and say, oh, just misinformation and Karen. I mean, we remember the whole Karen storyline. It was Karen and Endeavor spreading lies, and we're doing this again. Like, we're doing this again. It's just a little bit exhausting, even if I have empathy for a school like Cal that's going to be in a lot of trouble. Great academics, great Olympic sports, but your football and men's basketball, yeah, it's probably in some trouble, man. It's not in a great spot, and I am sorry. I feel for you on that. But it doesn't mean that this is all misinformation, and it doesn't mean that you should just be so selective with your hearing and listening to interviews like what was out there with Doug Rohan. So, boy, hell of a takeaway there. Hell of a takeaway from Cal. But, you know, shout out to Marshawn Lynch and Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully they're walking back through that door because I can't tell you much else that has happened relevant for Cal football ever since that point. Maybe Deshaun Jackson, was he after those guys? You know, outside of that, I couldn't tell you a whole hell of a lot about Cal football. I'm not sure that very many people could. I'm not sure that many Cal fans could. I see the stadium shots. Anyway, yeah, the vibes still say, back to the vibes combo from the other day, the vibes still say that the ACC's in trouble because the three best brands are probably gone. Okay. Now that we've all settled that, we're on the same page, we can move forward. Thank you, Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that. My condolences for your loss. Good to have you back. It is good to be back, my friend. Thank you very much for that. And if you guys need a real estate agent in San Antonio, you know where to go. It's my guy, Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. Great supporter of the channel. And great to see you here. Thank you for being here on a Monday. I know it's not the typical night of the week. Thank you for rearranging your schedule, my friend. Appreciate you there. Ryan, I did say Marshawn, but not Jared Goff. Not Jared Goff. So, okay. Jared Goff. All right. I guess that's somewhat relevant. I'll give you Jared Goff. All right. People asking about the Big 12 rumor. We talked about it just a bit at the top, but we have not gotten into the actual reporting of this. Ooh, boy, do we have a Cal fan in here? Hold on. John, are you a Cal fan? Please let me know. I'm getting called a knucklehead because I didn't know Jared Goff. Well, I knew Jared Goff, but I didn't reference Jared Goff there. Boy, if we're grasping at like Jared Goff and calling people knuckleheads because I said nothing relevant has happened to Cal football since Marshawn Lynch and Deshaun Jackson, we are really, really grasping for the bottom of the barrel here, John. But I listen, nothing but the best to your Bears. I hope things work out. You are a very relevant program because Jared Goff played there in, let's see. He was born in 94, so he graduated in 2015. Okay, yes. Jared Goff played at Cal a decade ago. So you are correct. It's only been an irrelevant program for a decade, Cal fan. It's only been an irrelevant program for a decade because you had Jared Goff. So yes, I'm a knucklehead. Everybody, let's be clear. Cal has only been an irrelevant program for a decade because Jared Goff played in 2015. Okay, John. All right, that's good. I appreciate it, John. We got to make a good point there. Thank you for that. All right. So for those asking about the Big 12 rumor, look, it's about Oregon State and Washington State. And it seems to me like the genesis of this was our good friend MHVER3, or is it MHVE3R? If you're on Twitter, you're aware of him. I have said before, look, I mean, I will pay attention to what he says. It's not like everything he says has been wrong. There are certainly things he has said that have come true and been right. But a lot of it to me does border on fan fiction, kind of like some things that seem like they would make sense, things that have wound up being right, but then maybe going a little bit too far sometimes. So I will just always say you make your own determination on how much you want to read into it and how much you want to actually believe. But I did see that he had been back and active and was talking about Washington State and Oregon State being legitimate possibilities to the Big 12. And it feels like we do this every 6 months. Like every 6 months, there comes back around something about Oregon State and Washington State to the Big 12. Going back to, we've done like 3 cycles of this, I guess would be the point. Going back to even before the Pac-12 totally broke up, we did a cycle toward the end there, like, okay, well, if it does, like, could Oregon State and Washington State wind up actually coming to the Big 12? And then it was like, well, they left. And then we did one big round of, hey, could Oregon State and Washington State actually come here to this league? And then it was like, no, I mean, it's not going to make financial sense. So sorry about that. And then now we're doing it again, right? Like it's been another 6 months and we'll do it again. Yeah, guys, I mean, I didn't pay a lot of mind to it because it doesn't make much sense. And I feel so bad for Oregon State and Washington State fans. I would love it if somehow in all of this, they get back to basically the same level that they were at, but you're not going to get TV money for Oregon State and Washington State. I guess, is there a path out there where TV would maybe say like, hey, we'll pay out, we'll give you a 50% payout or something? Maybe. But I don't know, guys. I mean, if you listen to Greg Flugar and his channel, it sounds like they're having even a bit of trouble in terms of the dollar value that they would fetch with Mountain West teams to convince the best teams of the Mountain West to wind up joining them. Like it does not feel like this is a workable strategy at all. I think a lot of people seem to really like, particularly Oregon State, but like Oregon State and Washington State, and want, fan bases that would be very grateful for the opportunity. Certainly they have punched above their weight class at times. Oregon State probably more so right now than Washington State. So like, I guess I understand how some people could get to the point where they really like, they want to will that to happen. And we know that there's a desire on the Oregon State and Washington State side for them to try and will that to happen. Guys, it doesn't make much sense. And we're vindicated here with the reporting of Jon Wilner, where Jon Wilner says, social media was a Twitter this week with speculation that the Big 12 at ESPN's behest might extend membership invitations to the Cougars and Beavers. Our advice, ignore the scuttlebutt. Quote, the Big 12 has no interest in them, an industry source familiar with Commissioner Brett Yormark's strategy said. All right, we're gonna do this, okay? I wanna make sure that we make the point. It's been a minute since I've done this, created one of these little banners. All right, adding the banner. This is what the Big 12 source said, okay? Can we see this? Can we all see this? Do you want it to scroll at the bottom? Okay, I can't get it to scroll at the bottom. It's not working there for me. But maybe if I do it this way. There we go. There we go. Okay, here it is. I feel like this emphasizes the point well enough, right? This is what a Big 12 source told Jon Wilner, who has been nails. This is the guy that broke USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. Like, this, for my money, is the guy that was the best at reporting on the Pac-12. And you all know, even at times when you all were getting frustrated with him last year, I always maintain, like, I really respect the guy and he does a really good job reporting. This is what he is saying about Washington State and Oregon State via a Big 12 source. The Big 12 does not have interest in Washington State and Oregon State. It's a feel-good story if it were to happen, if they were to latch on somewhere. Maybe there's some scenario with the ACC where they lose Florida State, North Carolina, and Clemson and are trying to backfill, and they have to go that route. And then they're kind of back on that sort of playing field-ish. That's certainly a step above where they're at now. You know, maybe there is that. Maybe there is that out there. But for the Big 12, it's very simple. I will state it again. ESPN and Fox are not paying a full share. They're not ponying up $30+ million a year for Oregon State or Washington State. And at that point, then, like, how much of a reduced share do you want to actually take? And like, what are you really gaining? You're gaining a little bit of West Coast inventory. I mean, that's it. Maybe a little bit of flexibility on some later kickoffs, a little bit of West Coast inventory. That's what you're gaining. And it's not much beyond that. So I don't do this to try and dunk on Washington State and Oregon State. I'm just trying to communicate here because it does seem like there has been a lot of a push from some people that this like could legitimately happen. And I'm seeing you guys talk about some of it in the chat there. So look, not my place to go after anybody on that. I don't particularly care enough to, but this is a guy to trust, Jon Wilner. Another source called the rumors head scratching. All right. This is the next line in Jon Wilner's story. Another source called the rumors head scratching. And I mean, I got to be honest, that's kind of how I feel about it too. It is a little head scratching. Here we go. The Big 12 has no interest in them. Another source called the rumors head scratching. Head scratching. A third said that westward expansion for the Big 12 has not been discussed with campus officials in any material fashion. Sure, the schools would add Pacific time zone kickoffs to the Big 12's media rights inventory, but don't you think Yormark and ESPN execs already considered that issue last summer? That was when they declined to offer membership to the Cougars and Beavers. Also, Big 12 schools would never agree to accept lower media rights distributions, which means the Cougars and Beavers would be forced to enter the conference as half or quarter share members. I mean, look at that, like quarter share members. And that is really what I would think it would just about have to be. You know, if you want to be a quarter share member of the Big 12, come on down. But I don't know why that would really be beneficial for anybody. ESPN and or Fox would have to cover the cost of the additions and spend at least $75 million that they didn't feel compelled to spend last summer. Yeah, exactly. Also, the Big 12 is currently focused on assimilating the 4 corner schools, not on expansion. Conference and campus officials want to assess the 16-school structure before turning their gaze to 18 or more, which I will say on that front. I mean, I don't doubt that that's what they are telling people right now, and that's what they would be telling Jon Wilner. The Big Ten was saying the same thing last year about USC and UCLA, and then we know what happened. They wound up adding Oregon and Washington as well. So that can change if the right piece is out there. But again, nothing at all against our Beaver and Cougar friends. But those are not the pieces. Those are not the pieces. Boy, I'm seeing James here. Let's see what this does to. Okay, that takes away. James, are we going to pretend that Jon Wilner has Big 12 connections? He wasn't even talking to the Arizona schools, and he used to work in Tucson. Well, James, I guess I would put it to you like this. You see the names that are being mentioned in the chat here of the people that are spreading Oregon State and Washington State stuff versus Jon Wilner, who's made an entire career, a very long career out of hard journalism, working for the San Jose Mercury News, hard journalism and covering a league better than anybody else did, to the point where he broke the USC UCLA story. Which one are you going to trust more here? Again, no offense to anybody, but I'm going to take the guy with the track record of having the journalistic connections to where he built a career on it and is still now working at the San Jose paper. So James, you make your own decision, but that's how I would put it to you. Okay, that's how I would put it to you. This is kind of fun getting these banners rolling again. I need to bring the banners back, guys. I will try to bring the banners back more often here. That was fun. Now, if you want, I'll try to leave you with a little bit of hope for Wazoo and Oregon State. Wilner says if the Big 12 does expand, schools in the ACC, starting with Clemson and Florida State, if they're available and interested, would be the top targets. In other words, nothing about adding Wazoo and OSU makes sense. All that said, we must add one caveat. If the ACC disintegrates at some point in the next 12 to 36 months, the situation could change. It could change for the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10, and the entire power conference structure. So there you go. Yes, all bets are off. All bets are off if the ACC implodes. If we have total chaos in the ACC, we'll see what happens. I mean, that could change like I said, what the ACC wants to do. Maybe they want to backfill, and then it would start to make sense to pull in an Oregon State or a Washington State. Who knows what that means for just the general structure of the sport? It's been changing so rapidly. Give it some time, but the time is not now for the Big 12 to be taking in these schools. Wilner says, but as things stand with the 4 intact power conferences, the door to the Big 12 is closed for the Cougars and Beavers. And he says, which is exactly why the 2-year grace period is vital, granting them time to let the landscape evolve. Exactly. Okay. They have a 2-year grace period here where they don't have to, the NCAA is not mandate. They can be the Pac-2 for 2 years. And that buys them time to scope out the landscape. That's exactly it. And they are talking to some leagues about scheduling partnerships, which can be a door, getting in the door, right? I view this as Washington State and Oregon State need an internship, right? When I was in college, they told me, hey, man, you need an internship. So I went and I sent an email to the guy at the local radio station that did sports radio in Manhattan. I got an internship, and it turned into my job for 10 years. Okay. That's how you do it. You get in the door, and then you're there. So Wazoo and Oregon State want to get in the door. Wilner had this reporting in a different story. He said, what's next for the Cougars and Beavers? Conversations. That's what. With Pac-12 Commissioner Teresa Gould running point, the schools are in discussions with multiple conferences in both the Power 4 and Group of 5 about strategic partnerships that could take effect as early as the 2025 season, according to industry sources. Those discussions, the source added, are not specific to WSU and OSU potentially joining one of the power leagues, although that option definitely has not been dismissed. Okay, so definitely has not been dismissed. You've got that. That option definitely has not been dismissed. fine. That seems to me like I would bet, if I were to speculate, I would bet that that's coming from the Pac-12 / Pac-2 side of it, saying like, hey, they haven't totally shot that down now. Like, okay. But as Wilner reported earlier from the Big 12 side, they're like, no, I mean, we're not adding them right now. Like something drastic would have to change for us to be adding them. So, I mean, that's where we're at. Instead, the conversations are wide-ranging in nature and include possible scheduling alliances or creative ways to work together that could provide a stepping stone to the future. Quote, it's all at a very broad level. Jeremy, yes, I will start referring to them as the Tupac. All right. So I would bet that this is coming from the Tupac side where they're like, hey, we're talking about scheduling alliances. We're talking about, maybe stepping stones to the future. We're trying to, lots of buzzwords, alliance, creative ways, all these different things to, be like, hey, we've got a shot here. And then on the Big 12 side, they're like, yeah, no, like, no. Again, do I need to bring the banners back for the Big 12 side? Let's bring the banners back. Let's bring the banners back. Oh, no, we need this one. And then the Big 12 has no interest in them. Here are the Big 12 sources again from Jon Wilner, respected journalist, guy who made an entire career out of it. Another source called the Rumors head scratching. The Big 12 has no interest in them. All right. So there's the banners. That's the Big 12 side. Meanwhile, Tupac side, like, hey, scheduling partnership. We may get an internship. We'll be in the door. We'll be in the door at least. That's where things stand. Guys, Oregon State and Washington State to the Big 12 is not happening sans the ACC completely imploding. And even then, like, it's still probably more likely that something would happen with the ACC trying to backfill and save their souls as they lose their biggest brands. And basically, to me, the soul of the conference. So that's where we're at. And Jon Wilner has confirmed, like, you can listen to me say it. I will say it with the backing of Jon Wilner's reporting and his track record there. Okay, Mark. What's up, Mark? Mark says the BYU, Washington State, and Houston mascots are the rumor. They want the Big 12 to become the Cougar Conference. Whoo, boy. Wants the Big 12 to become the Cougar Conference. I do like that. I'm a big fan of Big 12 mascots. And Mark, there's not a better mascot in the league out there now than Cosmo the Cougar. Let me stamp that. Like, rubber stamp that. There is not a better mascot in the conference right now than Cosmo the Cougar. I had a chance to meet the esteemed Cosmo the Cougar in Vegas at Big 12 Media Days and watch him do a dance right in front of me. It was breathtaking. It was electric. So whatever he wants, that is the only way you can convince me that Washington State and Oregon State can come to the conference. If it really is Cosmo the Cougar that needs to make it happen, I'll sit down at the negotiating table with Cosmo the Cougar. I will do that. I love it, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Oh boy, we got some spice in the comments, it would appear. There's a lot to talk about today, man. I feel like we've got to do this. I've got to do this. I mean, I know realignment is what drives all the discussion. People want realignment, but we are all generally here, right? Because we like college football. They play games. We talk about actual college football. So today, make sure I've got my screen ready to go here. Yeah. All right. Today we got the coaches poll. All right. College football talk. Today we got the coaches poll, and I was actually, pretty impressed with how the Big 12 came out here. Now, there's no Big 12 team in the top 10. That should not be surprising. The ACC, we were having the discussion the other day about who is the third best conference. The ACC wants to push the tangible metrics that are out there right now and the teams that are technically still a part of their league right now, although legally they're trying to dispute that. Florida State is in the top 10. They are at number 10. But the next team to come out of the Big 12 or the ACC is a Big 12 team in Utah, just in front of Clemson at 13. That's a lot of, I would say, a healthy amount of respect for Utah, especially with Cam Rising coming back from injury. That to me is still a question mark there. Then you've got K-State and Oklahoma State checking in back-to-back at 17 and 18. That seems about right. I've seen K-State, Oklahoma State, Utah, placed within one or two teams of each other almost every time. I feel like I've seen anybody doing a poll in this preseason so far. So that seemingly checks out. They're right in front of Miami, the next ACC team. So we're really not too far off if we're comparing the leagues and where they're at right now. And that, again, is with Florida State and Clemson, who will be at some point departing. Then we've got Arizona at number 21. Vindication for the Arizona fans who were upset at Brett McMurphy earlier today for not including Arizona in his top 25. And he gave the Big 12 a lot of respect. 5 teams in there, 3 in the top 15. But he did not include Arizona in the top 25. And then we've got Kansas at 24. And if you want to go to others receiving votes, let me pull this up here because I had spliced all that out. West Virginia, Iowa State, UCF, Texas Tech, and Colorado receiving votes. Now, I do think this is funny because Colorado received 2 votes, a grand total of 2 votes in this poll. And how much discussion have we all had about Colorado? We've heard Joel Klatt telling us that Colorado can make the playoff. There are people that get furious at you if you say, like I have been saying, like Colorado's probably a 6-6, 7-5 sort of team, which would be great and a nice step up from last year. But that's not good enough for most. Colorado is sitting here receiving 2 votes in the coaches poll. All right. Now I know you'll say, hey, John, I mean, the coaches poll, like that's fine. The coaches poll is done by a bunch of SIDs or interns or whoever, right? This is not actually the coaches that are voting in this. But I mean, this isn't even like media folks. This is like at least a little bit closer, I guess is the point. This is a little bit closer to people that are actually out there playing the game and what they think about what's going on there. And they are saying that Colorado deserves 2 votes. Not many people with the Buffs there. Cyclone Steve, I missed your super chat. Cyclone Steve, I promise I will get back to that. My fault, my friend. My fault. I scrolled past that too quickly. I apologize. So who has beef here? Does anybody in the Big 12 really have beef? I would listen to a Kansas fan being like, hey, we shouldn't be that far behind the pack, but it's splitting hairs a little bit. You're still in the top 25. I am glad to see Kansas ahead of Iowa. I think they are definitely a better team than Iowa. And good Lord, you hear a lot from Iowa fans, a little mouthy on Twitter, probably somewhat because they're talking down to who they perceive to be their little brother in Iowa State, but also just like Big 12 fans. And nothing annoys me more than hearing that. Iowa, dude, I would love nothing more than to put Iowa in the Big 12 and watch them lose games. I would love nothing more. Absolutely nothing more. Maybe Penn State. Maybe Penn State I would love more, but that's about it. I mean, certainly K-State, Oklahoma State, Utah can't have much of a beef. Arizona, probably not. I mean, you're right there. I think that's fine. West Virginia fans, I do feel like West Virginia fans will be a little bit tweaked by this. So 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. West Virginia's at 33 here with their 22 votes that they are receiving. Iowa State fans probably too, because 34, 35, 36, Iowa State's checking in here at 36. Iowa State has a lot coming back, a ton of production coming back. Had a really nice season last year based on circumstance, especially. But I do wonder, and I know, like I will take flack from Iowa State fans here with this take. Okay, and Cyclone Steve, I hope you don't get too upset with me because I accidentally missed your super chat earlier, which I will get back to. And then I'm about to say this. Well, you guys know my Matt Campbell take. If you've watched the channel for a while, like I feel like he's a very high floor, little limited ceiling in terms of being a coach. The COVID year when a lot of stuff was wonky and Jimbo was winning and North Carolina was like at the top of the sport and you had some goofy things happening because of the pandemic. Yes, Iowa State did have arguably their best season in school history. They brought everybody back the next year and went 7-6. A lot of it feels like when Matt Campbell has the high expectations and a lot coming back, doesn't hit the ceiling, but he's always going to be higher than what you think the floor is because that's kind of who he is as a coach. I was going to add this onto it, and it came at my expense because you bet your you-know-what that I know exactly what it felt like to watch Abu Sama and Iowa State run all over my squad in the snow last year at the end of the year there. I think K-State elevated the hype machine for Iowa State by about tenfold with that game happening. And not just because K-State lost the game and gave up the most explosive plays I think I've ever seen a football team put out there on the field in a single game. I mean, I've been dancing around it was a total ass kicking, man. I mean, it was crazy. Iowa State scored more explosive plays than I've ever seen a team uncork in a game. Not only did that happen, but it was also a snow game. So like people were tuned into it because it was a snow game. It has novelty. People love that. And so there was more eyeballs on it. There were more eyeballs on the game. And it was crazy with how Iowa State was going up and down the field. So a lot more people watched, paid attention, got excited. And I think K-State just, whatever it was, Matt Campbell having Chris Kleiman's number, some K-State defenders like Will Lee being really checked out and deciding to, Super Mario Kart mushroom push forward the guy or give him the little star where you start running twice as fast, whatever the hell that was from Will Lee last year. There's some wonky stuff going on. If it was the snow, K-State being bummed that they changed the tiebreaker rule, they weren't going to get in the Big 12 championship game, whatever it was, feels like to me that game elevated the hype a little bit too much for Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State did not have a very good performance in the bowl game, and I still just feel like they're going to be about what they always are, probably a 7 to 8 win team, which would put them in this spot, right? In this spot. And I know, Clone fans, I understand. K-State has lost its fair share of games to you, so I get it. What do I know? But I do kind of know what the general season usually looks like for the Clones. And I saw the other day that there was a discussion among Iowa State fans. I think it was Chris Williams, who does do a great job covering Iowa State, having the conversation. Like, people would be like legitimately disappointed if they're not in the playoff this year, or was it making the Big 12 championship game? I'm pretty lofty. It just seemed like the expectations were very, very lofty. So I'm sure Iowa State fans would not take super kindly to being placed at number 36 here. But I would bet that a lot of it is based on what I said. That's kind of the view I think of Iowa State's program right now, which is still very good. I mean, nothing to be ashamed about at all, by the way. UCF got 4 votes. Texas Tech got 4 votes. I like the upward mobility of UCF there. More so than Tech, but mainly just because I really like the quarterback at UCF. But man, I mean, I saw the catches Micah Hudson was making. I saw that like reaching out shoestring grab where somehow his fingertips stayed on the ball, and Patrick Mahomes was tweeting about it. Like, yeah, there's definitely some talent to like there. I don't know about Baron Morton at quarterback. Colorado, that's fine. Give him 2 votes for the hype machine. You got to love this. Joel Klatt said this was one of the games that would define the college football season, was Colorado, Nebraska. They got a combined 4 votes in the top 25 coaches poll. Now, polls are not the be all end all. I understand, but I feel like I've made my point there on that one with the Joel Klatt thing, and did on a show when that actually happened. But anyway, for Big 12 fans, that's what you need to know about the preseason top 25 poll from the coaches anyway. It's a good sign to see that, because it means we're starting to talk about actual football games here, by the way. If you're wondering the top 5, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, that seems about right. Seems about right. Those are the teams that you're going to most commonly see in the top 5. That was very, very chalky. Okay, Cyclone Steve, I am so sorry that I missed your super chat earlier. You're a great supporter of the channel, my friend, and I appreciate you a lot. Cyclone Steve, can Washington State and Oregon State take a tiny cut and the Big 12 keeps the rest? Yeah, I guess we had I got into that with the Jon Wilner thing. Like, is it a quarter share, half share? Like, maybe, but you got to ask yourself, if you're the Big 12, like, what you want to be gaining something too. And again, it no offense at all meant to Wazoo or Oregon State, but I'm not sure what you're really tangibly gaining there. So is it worth the trouble? Is it worth the hassle? If you can work out the numbers and see that, hey, West Coast inventory and having an extra game or 2 in that time slot, maybe like what Jon Wilner talked about the other day, the crazy time slots for different games that they could be playing, like the Sunday night game, if they want to go really late on a Sunday night or whatever it might be. If that's going to help you enough and the dollars and cents are there and TV likes it and you take them in as a quarter member, like, okay, maybe something like that starts to happen. So yes, possible, still probably not likely though. Cyclone Steve is what I would say. Gunkawit. What's up, Gunkawit? Appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of the channel. Gunkowitz says OSU versus OSU every Halloween would be great. I wonder if some teams in the Big 12 can and will do a scheduling alliance with the Tupac for an extended period. So Oregon State, Oklahoma State, black and orange. Maybe nobody's wearing like the white road uniform, right? You just flip-flop the tops or something. One of them wears black top, orange pants. The other one reversed, and then you play them on Halloween when it fits very appropriately. Now that's some marketing, Gunkowit. I don't know what embodies younger, hipper, cooler more than Oregon State and Oklahoma State playing in an annual Halloween rivalry matchup because they're all wearing orange and black. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I'll run it past Tyrell Kirkham, the Big 12 Chief Marketing Officer, who you saw on the channel not too long ago. I will make sure to run that past him. Gunkowit. I keep wanting to say Gunkowit. K-State did schedule, I believe it was Washington State. It's not too long ago. Or no, it must have been Oregon State. K-State's got Washington State on the schedule, and did they add Oregon State? They added one of the two, I feel like, within the last year. There it is, April. In April, K-State announced they would play a home-and-home with Oregon State in 2030 and 2031. So, that's far down the road. The Scheduling Alliance talk, according to Wilner, was even about like as early as 2025. So this is obviously way later down the road, but that has at least been discussed. The thing that I would just wonder from a Big 12 standpoint on this is, again, you got to have enough to gain out there for you. You may want to take a wait-and-see attitude here on like how the playoff selection goes, and if you're really getting skunked by the playoff committee outside of your champion, it might be worth it to say, hey, you really need to go out and like schedule, like do what West Virginia is doing. And like, you better be going out and playing Penn State, like find some team in that caliber and go play them in your non-con, because that's the only way we're going to get enough respect to eventually start getting an at-large pick in the playoff. And if an Oregon State or Washington State's going to make that a little tougher on you, because those will be tricky games. Like, I think there's enough respect there to know that's not going to be a pushover, but it's also not going to be a game that garners you the type of respect that like a Penn State would. I would want to be paying attention to what happens this year with the playoff, which, by the way, is what the SEC is doing. They're mulling over what they're going to do with their conference schedule, if they want to add an extra conference game to their schedule or not. And some of it's going to be about what happens here with the playoff. How will the committee judge teams here? So everybody is in a little bit of wait and see mode on that. But I appreciate you, Gunkowit. Thank you. All right, scrolling down here to the bottom of the chat. It's Colorado story, guys. I have tried to be very measured, which seems to be the word here that I've heard a lot. I've tried to be very measured about Coach Prime and Colorado, and I have been very much in the middle of what it feels like a lot of the predictions are. I think Colorado's probably a 6-6, 7-5 type of team this year, which would represent great progress from where they're at last year. And I would think that means Dion is doing a great job. Coach Prime, is doing a great job. Hell, I pay him the respect of calling him Coach Prime 99% of the time, outside of that little slip up right there. Like, I respect Colorado. I think they're fine. They're fun, and they're very good for the Big 12 in terms of how much attention that they generate, the eyeballs that they generate. That's all very well and good. But when you say, hey, Colorado's going to go 6-6, then you have people mad that you don't have them going 3-9, and you have people mad that you don't have them going 10-2. I mean, anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is I feel like I'm a realist on Colorado, but not a hater. I'm far from a hater. I would love it if Colorado is good and relevant in the league and to the national college football landscape. It would be awesome. It does feel like this type of story that comes out from Athlon, I have to take it with a large grain of salt. I will put it that way. If we're talking about reporting, I'm not trying to take specific shots at anybody. I just don't think of Athlon as like a place that's breaking a bunch of stories. So I have to immediately pause and go like, okay, Athlon. Love the preview magazines. I've been reading the preview magazines since I was very young, man. I mean, I think Athlon has a good preview magazine, but I don't typically see them breaking stories. So do I trust them saying that Colorado, the culture there is all about guns and gambling and fighting, which is what the story is. It's an entire story of that here. I'll read you some quotes, and these are apparently from former players who remain anonymous here that Athlon says that they talked to. Who out there, by the way, would talk to anonymous players and report on that and write about that? Make sure you go to ofbnews.com and sign up for Open for Business, my Big 12 newsletter, and you can read just that. By the way, Quote, "It's like a real-life Grand Theft Auto video game," one former player said. "There are many distractions with fights, guns, and money floating around. The environment is unlike any I've come from before." So part of the problem with this story is this is like fear porn for anybody who hates the current landscape of college athletics where the players are getting paid, right? And where the players have power to because they can transfer whenever they want. It's exactly what they all fear. It's going to turn into a Grand Theft Auto video game with fights, guns, and money floating around. There is a big passage about Cormani McClain, who's a very high-profile recruit that was at Colorado last year. The former player said Cormani was taking a lot of heat from everyone. At the same time, Coach Prime was saying he was in the doghouse and needed to improve. Cormani was getting bullied by Shiloh Sanders. After the Oregon State game, Shiloh slapped him several times, which left Cormani screaming, "I'm going to kill you," repeatedly. After that, you could tell he wasn't mentally there. It's hard when the coaches you trust are calling you derogatory names on the practice field. The violence often seemed to come from personal vendettas, but not always. Jordan Seaton, another five-star recruit, was allegedly bullied into proving his manhood and picked to fight former CU lineman Savion Washington. In April, the two were said to have exchanged blows, leaving both bloody. Witnesses described it as two bears scrapping for food. So you got a fight, you've got some bullying, and, kind of another fight. You've got the gun stuff. Then there's another story here that is told in the story. The son of Kevin Mathis, who was Colorado's defensive backs coach, was asked to pay Allen. So one player is asked to pay another player a gambling debt in excess of $10,000, according to a former CU player. When Mathis refused, he allegedly proceeded to punch Allen repeatedly in the locker room, with players and coaches witnessing the assault. It's a lot of stuff that's not good. And I'm realizing right now, I had that realization. I was reading the story. Like, I was reading a quote there, but I hope that this is not going to give me some issue with YouTube, because I just read the quote there about what Cormani McClain apparently said. YouTube. I'm just reading a quote here. I should have spelled the word out instead of saying it. My apologies. But anyway, I don't know, man. Like, the back half of the story really started to make me question some of this a little bit too, because it was like, they were talking about like, hey, there's a culture of guns because Dion had a retreat where they were at a gun range, and that was a piece of it. And they were connecting, hey, here's a player who was coming into the program that had some gun charges. Now, there was, in fairness, a screenshot of a player on Instagram Live who apparently had a gun that flashed for a second after he was celebrating with Coach Prime about signing with them, something to that effect. I don't know. It felt a little bit like a stretch to me toward the end. Disgruntled former players can always be a little bit dangerous to listen to. I'm not trying to totally poo-poo the entire Athlon story here, but this is one that I would highly encourage you to take with a grain of salt. I'll put it that way. I would highly encourage you to take this story with a grain of salt. I'm certainly not running with it. And I feel like you're not seeing a lot of the like really, really legitimized college football reporters or outlets like running with this. And I think that's because with allegations like this and the fact that it's from former players and it's not somebody that's typically like breaking news, there are enough warning signs there to be like, this is not the hill to die on with Colorado. Like that's where I'm really at. I don't think this is fair to run and be like, well, this is why I'm going to beat up Colorado. If you want to beat up Coach Prime in Colorado because they've done too much in the portal and like you worry about the stability of that or their offensive line or just the attitude, like, there was a video going around the other day where Prime said like, hey, no hitting Travis or Shador. What was it, like quarterbacks or Shador or Travis? I don't know. He was specifying guys that couldn't be actually like hit during practice. Some people didn't like that. I mean, look, that's fine. If you don't like that and you think that's not the right way to build a football team, like that's fine. If you want to go down that road, I'm cool with that. There's plenty of ammo there if you don't like them. But this is the type of story that I see. And I'm just like, man, the people who are the worst Colorado haters, like not even wanting to acknowledge any of the progress that was made or some of the positives from Coach Prime, those are the people who are going to take this and run with it, and it's going to be bad. Like, I don't I don't like that. I don't like that exists as a possibility here. So that's my real thing with this Colorado story. I have plenty of intrigue about how it's going to work when they have this much turnover, not just with the portal, but with the staff. They have such star power at the top, as good a star power as anybody in the league. But then where is the depth? Where is the offensive line? Can they win in the trenches? I have lots of questions about Colorado. I'm definitely taking a wait and see on this. If we get a more public story with some of this coming to light or more public proof of these things happening, then I'll be more willing to come around on it. But for right now, it feels a little bit axe to grind-ish with Colorado, as I view it anyway. Okay, guys, it is buzzer beater time. Buzzer beater time right now. I'm debating whether or not to get into the Big 12 pregame experiences list. If you follow me on Twitter, you definitely saw it. If you follow me on Twitter, you definitely saw it earlier today. There was a list. What was the website? Bookies.com. Okay. It's funny how these I have never heard of bookies.com before in my life. Nothing against bookies.com. I've never heard of it. They said they used an algorithm to determine that the best pregame experiences for fans in the Big 12 and listed them all out 1 through 16, what stadium has the best pregame experiences for fans based on a number of different categories. And boy, people were up in arms about it. And I'm like, guys, it's an algorithm. I don't know how an algorithm does ranking college football stadiums, basically. And then 2, it's an algorithm from bookies.com. We don't know what this is. We don't know what this is. So it was a little funny, but it is what I love about the league, right? Everybody is passionate in Big 12 country about their school and their environment and all of that. So I get it, man. Everybody's passionate about it. Check out the Open for Business newsletter if you want to read about that. Check out my Twitter account, @JLKurtz on Twitter, ofbnews.com to get signed up for the newsletter, which is the best way to support me right now if you are into the content that I produce and all of that. Maybe I'll save it. Maybe I'll save it for Thursday, see if we can fit it in on Thursday with a little bit more open space to actually get there. So, I guess I'll wrap it up on that note. Thank you guys for being here on a Monday night, a rarity. I will reiterate again, the next live show will be on Thursday. Okay, Thursday night, because Wednesday night I've got a couple of events that I'm going to be going to. So I will not have time. Would not have time to put together a good show for you. So we're gonna regroup, do it on Thursday, which works anyway because we had the late show here today. If you could like the video on the way out the door, that would be awesome, awesome, awesome. I appreciate all of you guys for being here and for your support as always. Subscribe to the newsletter, ofbnews.com, Open for Business. Tell your friends and family about the channel. That is a great way to support as well. Let's continue to grow this thing. Appreciate all of you guys who have helped in that throughout the history of this channel. To grow it into what it is now. Spread the word on social media, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, wherever you are at on social media. Put it on your MySpace page, all right? Let your top 5 on MySpace know about it. Get it on your Zanga, wherever it is that you are on social media. Let people know about the channel and the newsletter. I appreciate you guys immensely. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night, and I will talk to you all soon. Oh, wait. Hold up. I missed an Alan. I am sorry. I hope everybody's still here. I missed Alan's super chat. Alan, my guy. Dude, I've been so bad at the super chats today. I am so sorry, Alan. John, Jayhawks number 24 in the coaches poll, many years in the college football rankings. Desert, a preseason top 25 ranking, a 10-2 season, beating K-State, a New Year's Day bowl game would be a dream season. Alan gets the buzzer beater here today, everybody. I am sorry, Alan. I hope you're still here to hear this. Okay. Yeah. Look, first of all, yes, incredible accomplishment. And maybe I should have spent more time on this. Maybe I should have spent more time on the fact that Kansas was in a preseason top 25 poll. It's an incredible accomplishment for the program, man. It's an incredible accomplishment for the program. 10-2 season, beating K-State, a New Year's Day bowl game would be a dream season. Yes. I mean, look, that's out there as a possibility. That is. I mean, I'm a K-State fan, and I fully admit it's a very real possibility. Like that game last year, I mean, to be honest, that's Kansas playing with a third string quarterback. And if they don't muff a punt and if they don't drop a pick six, if one of those two plays goes differently, K-State's losing the game. I have never been, Alan, I probably told you at the time, I've never been more miserable, I think, watching a K-State game than I was watching that game against Kansas last year, because it never felt comfortable at all. I never felt like they were going to win the game until they actually did win the game. So anyway, it very much could happen, even though the game is in Manhattan this year. It's probably going to depend largely on quarterback health, as it seems to with like everybody in the league. You know, K-State's got a mobile quarterback. We'll see how that winds up going throughout the year, although I don't think they're going to try to run him too much. But it's all a possibility. There are questions. Yes, you're not going to be playing home games. How will the Arrowhead thing work out? Iowa State game, it sounds like they're going to be able to infiltrate and get a lot of people in there. Beyond just that, you've also got the offensive coordinator change. I think that's big because Andy Kotelnicki, I think, is an elite offensive coordinator. That's why he gets hired by one of the more affluent Big Ten schools out there in Penn State. They've got the money to throw around and get him. I do think that's a question. Jeff Grimes, I'm so about. You could ask different people in the Big 12, for instance, and get different responses about him and how effective he's going to be. So there are certainly question marks there, but the upside is absolutely there. Like the scenario you just laid out is 100% in play. It is. It is. You know, and I know people like, oh, the Twitter shtick and whatever. Like, I can't. Look, guys, I will repeat this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you are denying that Kansas can possibly do this, you're a hater. You're a hater. That's what it is. You're just a hater. It's absolutely a possibility. Even if you're the most ardent K-State fan, would have to admit that it is a possibility. So, Alan, congratulations to your Jayhawks for being ranked in the preseason top 25. You got a lot to be excited about, a lot to be fired up about. I know Kansas fans thought Jalen Daniels looked great. I just saw some of the Twitter videos that were going around of the open practice from the other day. So it seems like things are in very, very good order right now for Kansas to start the season here. You guys should be as fired up as anybody in the conference. So, Alan, thank you for being here. I hope you didn't bounce because I was already bailing on my whole show here, completely out of my own rhythm. But hopefully I think Alan follows me on Twitter. I'll try and find you, Alan. I will try and find you to make sure that you do see this, because I do not want to neglect you. Hate that happened to both Alan and Cyclone Steve. And now I'm going to get all this. I was the KU guy and the Iowa State guy. I'm sure I'll hear it about that. But you guys know I love you, and I appreciate all of you guys. Really appreciate all of you guys supporting the channel, as always. Okay, take care. Much love to everybody, and I will talk to you all soon.